Christmas is right around the corner, and today I'm going to be working on a little Christmas magic for one of our grandchildren. Hey friends, it's Barbara Sue at Kowalski Mountain, and welcome back to the homestead. Now I know I said that Christmas was right around the corner, but if you're watching this, Christmas has actually already gone by. But I can't release a video when I have a gift in progress. But today, I'm going to bring you along while I make a little Christmas quilt for our granddaughter, Blakely. Now, if you've watched any of my other quilting videos, I always talk about my favorite book, the Around the Block quilting book, and this is by Judy Hopkins. Now, this book has been missing, and I finally found it like 2 years later. In the meantime, I had bought a separate book. This is Once More Around the Block, and this book got me through some of my quilting projects while this book was hidden. Now today I'm going to be making a doll quilt for Blakely, and I am actually going to be using some of the fabrics that you've seen in some of my other quilts. I've already done quite a bit of prep. I went through both of my books and I've already picked out my pattern, and I also went through all of my fabrics and I picked out my fabrics. So we are actually to the part of starting this quilt. Now today we are going to be doing just a pinwheel. Now pinwheels are my favorite quilt pattern, and I'd like to do them in lots of different variations, but this quilt is going to be tiny. It's only going to have a 4-inch block. So I picked the most simple pinwheel there is. No flare, no extra pieces, just a simple pinwheel, and it should go together pretty quickly. Now I have a few little ideas to kind of make this quilt special and to give it a little bit of flair, but we're going to get to that. Now we're going to get started and we're going to start cutting out our blocks. Now this doll quilt is going to be just a little baby quilt, and it's going to have a total of 12 blocks in it. Now I have picked out 6 different colors, and so there are going to be 2 blocks of each color in the quilt. Now when you're working with a cutting mat like this, it's got lines on it. And we're also going to use a ruler. Now these cutting rulers come in a bunch of sizes. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to line up this square perfectly on the line. So perfectly here and perfectly here. And then I'm going to cut a 2 7/8. It's going to be a pain. I hate cutting things with these weird measurements. And I know 7/8 is not weird, but it's also not on a measurement that I can use this for. And the reason I'm saying that is because this only measures quarters where I need 7/8. So what I've done is I've lined this up on the 7/8. So then I'm just going to count to 2. So here's my 7/8. 1, 2. And this is a rotary cutter. Rotary cutting is super fast. And now we're going to do the same thing here. I'm going to measure my 7/8. And here we go. Now we're going to cut this in half. And we just put our ruler from corner to corner. Now because I picked a super easy pattern, all of my pieces are exactly the same, 2 7/8. Now I say this is going to be made mostly from scrap because I have not decided what I'm going to do on the back or the binding, and I may end up going in and purchasing a fabric especially for those pieces. Now right here I am measuring that 7/8 so you can see how the purple fabric is not quite reaching to that yellow line. That means that it's only 7/8 over into that section. Now I can measure 2 inches and cut directly on the yellow line. Now I'm going to turn that fabric and again do the same thing, lining up that 7/8, not quite touching the yellow line, leaving a 1/8 space. I'll cut my 2 inches and I can cut directly on that next yellow line to make a block of 2 7/8. Now once I'm done, I turn that corner to corner and I'm going to cut the triangles, making sure it's perfect, and there she is. One more colored fabric to cut, for this part anyway, and then we're going to go on to the white. Now measuring is a really important part of quilting correctly. And I like to follow the old adage, measure twice, cut once. All right, now I have all the colored pieces cut out. I'm going to move these out of the way. And we're going to cut the white. Now my white that I've picked out has a really pretty paisley pattern to it. Let me see if I can show it to you. Now for this part of the project, I'm going to go to my longer ruler. Now these have a rim on them, you can see right here, and that hooks on to the side of my board, and that keeps my lines really straight. So what I've done is I've lined up here, and then I'm going to cut this line straight. And my main goal right now is to cut off this finished edge. This is the raw edge done by the factory. That needs to go. And then to make these two pieces even. Alright, so now we're going to do our 2 7/8. And my main mat has the 8s measurements on it. So I am using my cutting ruler to make sure that I'm even. Now I'm lining up here and here, 2 7/8. Now we're going to do the same thing, and I'm going to put this so that I don't have to keep moving it. And I am going to switch back to my little ruler. Well, now that I've cut out the main pieces of this quilt, we're going to start sewing it. Now, I might regret this. I have a couple of bobbins that are almost empty. I'm going to use them up. Now, when I just did that, I could hear my mother in my head, because when you blow in the machine, you have moisture in the air that you're blowing, so you're basically spitting in your machine. And I could hear her telling me I was spitting in my machine. Oops. Now I am going to go ahead and fill up one full bobbin and then use up the other ones that I have. Now my sewing machine is a Brother sewing machine, and my youngest daughter is 28. So I've had this machine for probably 25 years. Now it's a very simple machine. It's very basic. It was very inexpensive. I actually bought it at Walmart all those years ago. Very inexpensive machine. If you don't sew very much, you don't need a fancy machine. You just need one that does basic stitches, forward, backwards, buttonholes, zigzags, very basic. And you don't have to spend a lot of money to do that. Now, if you sew a lot, it might be worth it to you to buy a more expensive machine. But if you don't, my machine's been going strong. I've had this serviced a few times over the years, and it's kept it running for me. And while it doesn't work perfectly anymore, it's still getting the job done. Now, when I am sewing something like this, I like to do this in strips. So I am going to mass produce these is what we're going to do. So I'm going to take one colored triangle, and I'm going to put right sides to right sides. And we're going to sew along this long line. Now, you sew 1/4 inch seams when you're quilting, and we're just going to sew it. Now I'm going to stop. I'm not going to cut my thread. I'm going to pick up my next 2 pieces, making sure my right sides are together. Now my needle is down, but I'm just going to continue going. We're just going to do that with all of these pieces. Now I have a little trouble telling the right sides of this white on white fabric, so I am trying to be careful of that. We just lift up our presser foot, put the other tails underneath, and keep on going. even though I was watching for that to run out of thread, I still did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, even though I was watching. I was checking every few blocks to make sure I didn't run out, and I still missed it. Now I have a long train of pieces. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut all of these apart. The nice thing about having done the long line, there's not gonna be long strings in between. It's just a simple little, we snip the thread that's in between, and then we have 2 pieces. Now the next part, before we are going to sew the next seam, we're going to also mass produce that so that when we're done, all of them will be done at the same time, is that we need to press. Now, nobody likes pressing. I don't like ironing. And I don't like doing this step, but it is an important part of sewing. Now, because my pieces have a white side and a colored side, I am going to iron away from the white side because I don't want to see the colored part through the fabric. You see how you can see that? I'm going to do it away so that that is not behind the white part of the square. So now I have to do this. We're going to iron all of them away from the white. So the white's going to go down on the ironing board. Come on. And these are all mixed up now, so I'm going to try to sort them out as I go. Now I have to tell you, as I am messing with all these little pieces, I'm even more thrilled that I went with a simple pattern, because these little pieces, whoops, they're kind of hard to manage, the tiny pieces. And if I had gone with a more intricate pattern, they'd be even tinier. I made a little mistake there, so it doesn't want to flatten. Now some seamstresses like to finger press, and a finger press just means I just push this over and I just kind of press it with my finger. I like to use the iron. I like to put a hot iron on it and make sure that that's going to be pressed properly. Now this block is a very simple block, but if you are doing a more complex block, that's when your pattern is going to become more important. Now these pictures tell you how to put it together. So we put the first 2 pieces together. That's step 1. We've already done that. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put 2 of these pieces together to form one unit. Now we're going to do the same thing that we did before, in that we are going to mass produce. We're creating the pinwheel is what we're doing. So I've got this piece here, and then this piece is slightly turned to go together. So we're going to be putting white side to a yellow side. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have that 1/4 inch seam. All right, now the same thing. We're going to go through and cut apart our long line of pieces. Now I'm not super happy with my machine's tension. Crap. And I just realized something. I just did a sewing project for my husband. I fixed some pants for him. And my needle is not actually placed correctly. So my seam is bigger than it should be. That's definitely going to affect the sizes of my blocks. Now, my first instinct is to fix it, but at this point, I'm just going to commit to it. Just do it all the same. My blocks are going to be smaller, which I'm kind of frustrated about. Nothing we can do about it now, and I'm too far into this to change it now, so we're just going to stick with it. All right, so now we're going to do the exact same thing. We are going to press, and I'm going to press the same way, pressing away from the white. And as you can see, what the next step is going to be is to put these together. Now that's the really cool thing about doing these mass production of blocks by sewing the same step, even when you're doing like more complex blocks. Because you sew and you sew and you sew and you do all these steps, and then all of a sudden you have all of the blocks done at the same time. Man, that's frustrating to me that I didn't put the needle back in the right spot. Number 1 on my machine is slightly off center, whereas number 2 is on center. And I never even caught it. I'm so frustrated with that. But if I change it now, it's going to change the seams, and I don't want to do that. We're just going to stick with it. Now, we're going to put the pieces together. And I don't use a lot of pins when I'm quilting. Now, I shouldn't say that. It depends on the complexity of my block. But right here, is where it's going to match. Now I have to tell you, I'm worried that incorrect needle placement is going to show right now. Let's see if it works. Are you ready? It worked. It came out perfect. It's super bulky because of that additional space. But I can live with that. Okay. Now, like I said, there is a lot of bulk, and I will probably cut that. But I'm not cutting anything yet. All right, same thing. We're going to cut these apart. And we are going to have 12 little tiny blocks. And you can probably guess what the next step is going to be. Let's see how they look. Now this center point is super bulky, and honestly that's going to become a problem when I quilt this, just because it's so bulky, but it looks cute. Now let's check my measurement. So this is supposed to be a 4-inch block, and that means a 4-inch finished block. So what that little mistake did was this, and this is my old address, by the way. Haven't lived there in many years. It's in Alaska. This is a 4-inch block, and that's without the seam allowance. So now it's a 3.5-inch block. So that little mistake of needle placement cost my blocks 1.5 inches. And that's something on my sewing machine I don't usually touch. It's always in the same place. The only reason I did was because I did a buttonhole, and I had to change the setting to do a buttonhole. And honestly, that might change the way that I quilt this, because this center is going to be really hard to get through. I'll have to think about it. Now, I will say that my blocks are not all perfect. I've seen 2 that I didn't like. Two out of 12 is okay, right? So here they are, my little blocks. All right, so now we are ready to start assembling the quilt top. Now I have some animals that need my attention, so I will be back in a bit. Okay, now my chores are done outside, and I have a little bit of time. So I've laid this out in the way that I want it. Now I'm tripping over one section. I have 2 blocks that are very similar in color. This one is actually red, this one is pink, but they look very similar in the layout. Now I've been trying to finagle it so that they're not together, because these 2 are together and I don't really like that. But every time I move one, then I change something else I don't like. So if I do this, then I have these 2 yellows. I don't like that symmetry like that. So I want to keep it a little bit more random. And I tried this. I don't like that. I don't actually like that either. Now the way that I've laid this out, I was very meticulous about the way I laid it out. So you can notice I have a 1-inch space here and a 1-inch space here. And that's because I wanted to see my spacing with how much sashing I'm going to put in. Now I changed this to 1.5 inches. I don't like that. So we're definitely going to keep it at 1 inch. And I believe this color is what I'm going to put in my little sashing corner pieces, like right here and here and here and here. Let's measure. This should be, here we go. These are right at 4. Okay, so we're going to do 4-inch by 1, and then, I'm sorry, actually we're not. We're going to cut 4.5 by 1.5 so that it's finished at 4 by 1. So 4.5 by 1.5 with 1.5 inch squares in the center. All right, we're going to sew, and I'm going to do that same thing by mass producing it. So then I want a pink on the end with a green. All right, now I cut these side pieces too long, so I'm just going to trim them. So let me just catch them up. Ooh. Welcome to day 2 of my afternoon quilting project, which I completely expected this would take more than one day. Now, if you've been around my channel at all, you know that one of my weaknesses is that I cannot visualize ahead. And so I made a mistake when I said how big to cut my white pieces. My blocks measured at 4 inches, and I wanted my little center squares here to be 1 inch. So I did need to add 1.5 inches to allow for seam allowances. My mistake was that I added a seam allowance to this. Well, I can't make that piece longer, so that made no sense. That was just a lapse in judgment. So I have taken all of these apart and I have fixed them all. So they are now back to where it will fit. Now, before I sew this together, I have moved these so many times that I need to check my placement. No, can't do that. That. All right, I think I'm happy with this layout. Let me show you. My overhead camera, the battery is not working good, and I used my phone, and some of my videos on my phone are so long that I can't get them off of it, so now I'm trying not to use my phone for too much. Now this is where I really wish I had a bigger workspace so that I could really lay this out and then sew beside it. That way I don't mess it up. Now this is going to go together really quickly at this point. Now this is so colorful and bright, and I'm pretty happy with how it's coming out. It's going to make a really cute little doll quilt. I'm still trying to decide how to finish it because I want to give it a little bit more pop, and I want it to be a little bit bigger, I think. Most of all, I want to put my granddaughter Blakely's name on this quilt. and that's kind of where I'm struggling about where to put the name. Let's sew it. All right, so I'm going to take my first piece and I am going to pin all my points because I want them to be perfect. So what that means is I'm going to line up these little seams perfectly and just put a pin in it. And now we sew. This is so colorful and bright. I think she is going to love all the bright, pretty colors. Now let's iron it. All right, now we are almost done with the top. Now the last thing I need to do for this is I want to put a border around it and I want to put her name on it. So I'm thinking I'm going to put her name at the bottom, and I wanted to put a colorful border around the outside. I hope I have enough fabric for that, because my idea is to use the same fabrics that are in the pinwheels in the border and just do a simple straight edged border, but I'm afraid I'm not going to have enough. And actually I can probably extend it by doing white in it to make it go further. So I'm going to do 1-inch strips with white in between. All right, let me think it through and I'll be back. Well, friends, the main part of the top is finished. And I think I'm going to wrap this video up here and continue in the next video of how we finish it. Now I still want to add a border to this and add her name and then quilt it and bind it. So that is going to all happen in the next video. Now, as always, friends, I really appreciate you watching. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, hit that button. You're going to want to know when this next video comes out. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.